My name is Claire Sanders, and for the past 6 years, I believed I was living the perfect marriage. My husband, Ethan, was charming, successful, and every bit the man my mother always said I was lucky to have. We lived in a beautiful house on the edge of Seattle, with glass walls overlooking the lake and soft rain tapping against the windows every morning. I used to think that sound was the sound of peace, but now, whenever it rains, all I hear is betrayal. Ethan and I met at a charity gala when I was still working as a journalist. He was confident, well-dressed, and had this quiet intensity in his eyes that pulled me in immediately. Within a year, we were married. He told me he wanted to protect me from the chaos of journalism. So when his business took off, I left my job to focus on us, on our life together. I thought it was love. I thought it was safety. But in reality, it was control. It started small, changes in his behavior that I brushed off as stress. Late night calls. Business trips that popped up last minute. A new cologne I'd never seen before. And that distant look in his eyes whenever I tried to hold him. I told myself I was imagining things. Every woman doubts her marriage at some point, right? That's what I kept telling myself. Until one night, I found the first real clue. It was a Friday evening. I had just finished preparing dinner, pasta, his favorite, and I went into his study to call him down. His phone was on the desk, vibrating. Normally, I would have ignored it, but the name flashing on the screen made my heart stop. Vanessa. My hand froze midair. The emoji alone felt like a slap. I didn't recognize the name, but something inside me knew. This wasn't a business contact. My heart was racing so hard it hurt. I told myself, maybe it's innocent. Maybe it's just a joke. Maybe. The phone vibrated again. This time, the message preview lit up the screen. Can't wait to see you again. Last night was unforgettable. My knees almost gave out. I just stood there, staring at those words like they were knives. When Ethan came downstairs, I was already sitting at the table, pretending to be calm. He smiled at me, that same practiced, warm smile that once made me fall in love with him. "Everything okay, babe?" he asked, pouring himself a glass of wine. "Yeah," I said, forcing a smile. "You got a message from Vanessa." The way his face changed in that moment, that tiny flicker of panic in his eyes, told me everything I needed to know. But instead of yelling, I stayed quiet. I needed to see how far he would go with his lies. He chuckled nervously. "Vanessa? Oh, she's just a client from the firm. We're closing a deal next week. She can be a bit friendly." Friendly. That word burned. I nodded slowly. Right, a client. And then, without another word, I got up and walked away. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind replayed every moment of our marriage. Every time he'd said he loved me. Every time he'd kissed my forehead before leaving for a meeting. I felt stupid, blinded by trust. But more than anything, I felt something else. A spark of anger that I hadn't felt in years. If he thought he could lie to me so easily, then he had no idea who he was really married to. I wasn't just some quiet housewife. I used to be an investigative journalist, and Ethan had just given me my next story. The next morning, while he was in the shower, I did something I never thought I would. I opened his phone. I knew his password, our anniversary. Ironic, isn't it? The moment I opened his messages, my breath caught. Vanessa wasn't just one message. She was hundreds. Photos, videos, inside jokes, hotel bookings. She wasn't some stranger. She was his mistress. And from what I saw, she wasn't just a fling. He was in love with her. My stomach twisted. I felt like I couldn't breathe. But then, something strange happened. Beneath all the pain, something else was boiling, a sense of clarity. I wasn't going to confront him. Not yet. I was going to dig deeper. Because men like Ethan, they always have more than one secret. Over the next few days, I watched him closely. Every time he claimed to be working late, I tracked his phone location using the Find My Device feature. And just as I expected, he wasn't at the office. He was always at the same place, the Emerald Suites Hotel, room 407. I wanted to scream, to march there and expose him right then and there. But my instincts told me to wait. There was something else, something bigger I could sense beneath the surface. Then, one night, I followed him. He left the house around 8 p.m., saying he had to finalize paperwork with a client. I waited 15 minutes, grabbed my keys, and drove after him. My heart was hammering in my chest as I parked across the street from the hotel. Through the glass doors, I saw him walk in, confident, casual, even whistling. And minutes later, she appeared. Vanessa. Young. Elegant. Dressed in red. She wrapped her arms around him, right there in the lobby, like she owned him. And he kissed her. I sat in my car, hands trembling, watching the man I married kiss another woman like I didn't even exist. I recorded it, every second of it. The journalist in me was wide awake now. But as I sat there, watching them disappear into the elevator, I saw something strange. A man in a black suit handing Ethan a small envelope before they walked off. Ethan glanced around nervously before slipping it into his jacket pocket. An envelope. That wasn't part of an affair. That was something else. My instinct screamed, he's hiding more than just a mistress. And I was going to find out what it was, even if it destroyed both of us. That night, as I followed Ethan home in the shadows, I had no idea that what he was hiding in that envelope would turn my entire world upside down. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Ethan's hands on her waist, his lips on hers, and that mysterious envelope passing between him and the man in black. By morning, I was running on caffeine and fury. I sat at the dining table, pretending to scroll through my phone as Ethan came downstairs in his suit, humming softly like nothing had happened. "Morning, babe," he said, leaning in to kiss my cheek. I moved slightly, just enough that he missed. "Morning," I muttered, keeping my tone steady. He didn't even notice. Or maybe he did, and didn't care. He poured himself coffee, picked up his briefcase, and left with a lazy, "Don't wait up tonight. Might be another late one." Late one. Right. The moment his car left the driveway, I jumped into action. I grabbed my laptop, opened a few old journalist tools I hadn't touched in years, and started digging. If that envelope was what I thought it was, something illegal, there would be a trail. Ethan wasn't as smart as he liked to think. I started by checking his business records. He owned a property development company, Sanderstone Estates. On paper, everything looked perfect. But then, I found something odd. A series of payments made to a company I'd never heard of. Ravenwood Consulting, all marked as marketing services. Except, Ravenwood didn't exist. There were no records, no website, no business registration. Just a bank account number, offshore. My hands began to tremble. Ethan wasn't just cheating on me. He was laundering money. That envelope I saw at the hotel wasn't love letters or hotel keys. It was cash. Dirty cash. I leaned back in my chair, heart pounding, trying to piece everything together. How long had this been going on? Was Vanessa just part of his cover? Or was she involved too? I needed proof. That evening, I followed him again. This time, I parked closer to the hotel. I waited, watching from the shadows as he met Vanessa in the lobby again. They laughed like teenagers. But instead of going upstairs right away, they met the same man, black suit, same posture, who handed Ethan another envelope. I grabbed my phone, zoomed in, and snapped several photos. Then I started recording. After 20 minutes, Ethan and Vanessa left together, heading to the parking lot. I crouched behind a car as they stopped near Ethan's BMW. I heard Vanessa say softly, "Are you sure it's safe? We're taking a big risk." Ethan's voice was calm, cold. "It's handled. Claire won't find out. She's too naive." My throat tightened. My fingers curled into fists so hard my nails dug into my skin. Too naive. They drove off, and I sat there, trembling with rage. I wasn't naive. I was calculating. And now I had the start of something much bigger, not just an affair story, but a crime story. When I got home, I printed everything I'd found. Screenshots, bank transactions, photos. I placed them neatly in a folder labeled Truth. The name felt poetic. The next day, I called my old friend Lena, a journalist who still worked at the Seattle Chronicle. She picked up on the first ring. "Claire? Wow, it's been ages." "What's up?" "Lena, I need your help." "Off the record, for now." Her tone changed instantly. "You sound serious." "Is this about Ethan?" I hesitated. "Let's just say he's not who everyone thinks he is." Within an hour, she was at my place. When I showed her the files, her eyes widened. This isn't just shady business, Claire. This looks like fraud. And if that company's fake, we are talking felony charges. She paused, flipping through the photos. Who's the woman? His mistress. Lena whistled low. Wow, you really hit the jackpot of betrayal. I nodded slowly, swallowing the lump in my throat. I want to expose him, but I want to do it right. Legally. Publicly. I want the world to see who he really is. Lena leaned forward. Then we'll need more. Paper trails, contracts, witness statements. And we need to find out who that man in the suit is. I smiled faintly. Already working on it. Over the next few days, I became obsessed. I tracked Ethan's movements, his emails, even his calendar. The more I dug, the darker it got. He had multiple hidden accounts, all linked to fake projects under Ravenwood. He was moving hundreds of thousands of dollars through shell companies. And then, I found a receipt that made my stomach drop. A $50,000 wire transfer. Recipient: Vanessa Rhodes. Memo: consulting fee. It wasn't a gift. It was hush money. That same night, Ethan came home unusually early. I was at the dining table, pretending to read, but I could feel his eyes on me, searching, suspicious. He sat across from me and cleared his throat. Claire, you've been acting different lately. Is everything okay? I looked up slowly. I'm fine. Why? He leaned forward, studying me. I don't know. You've been quiet, distant. You'd tell me if something was wrong, right? I smiled softly, masking the storm inside me. Of course, Ethan. Everything's fine. He nodded, still uncertain. Good, because I'm planning a little getaway next weekend. Just the two of us. Somewhere quiet. My heart skipped. A getaway? Was this guilt or manipulation? I forced a small laugh. That sounds nice. But inside, I was screaming, because I already knew he wasn't planning a trip with me. He was planning one with her. And I was going to be there to ruin it. That night, after he fell asleep, I checked his messages again. Sure enough, there it was. Ethan. Got the cabin booked. No one will find us there. Vanessa. Can't wait. Just you and me. My blood boiled. The cabin address was in Oregon, secluded, no neighbors. Perfect for privacy. Perfect for destruction. I printed the details, tucked them into my truth folder, and made my plan. This time, I wasn't just going to catch him. I was going to end him. As I stared at the address of that cabin, one chilling thought crossed my mind. If I was right about the money, Ethan wasn't just cheating. He was hiding something that could ruin lives. And I was about to expose it all. The cabin in Oregon was the kind of place couples posted on social media, rustic, candlelit, away from it all. Ethan thought it was the perfect place to hide. Vanessa thought it was the perfect place to be alone with him. I thought it was the perfect place to catch both of them with their hands in the cookie jar. I drove down late Friday, telling Lena I had an assignment out of town. The truth sounded so petty compared to what I was really doing. My chest felt tight as the highway blurred by. I didn't have a badge anymore, but I had the same instincts: prepare, document, expose. When I pulled up to the cabin, it sat quiet under tall pines, smoke still whispering from the chimney. The whole place looked like a postcard, and like a stage set for a betrayal I was about to expose. I parked a little way off and waited in my car until dusk. Through the binoculars Lena had lent me, I watched Ethan and Vanessa move like they owned the world. Vanessa laughed at something Ethan said and leaned in. He touched her face like a man who believed he'd traded a whole life for this moment. Then I saw the envelope. The familiar man in the black suit appeared from the shadows and handed Ethan something at the edge of the property. Ethan slipped it into his jacket and walked back toward the cabin. They were careless. They were sloppy. I felt a mix of hatred and sick triumph. Tonight I would get the proof that would make their faces plastered in headlines. I crept closer and circled the cabin until I found a loose board near the back porch. From a hollow I could see the corner of a waterproof box tucked under a storage bench. My fingers were steady as I pried it open. Inside were receipts, hotel invoices, and a small leather notebook with handwritten entries. Every line was a pulse against my chest. The notebook listed names, dates, amounts, all the transfers to Ravenwood Consulting. and next to several entries were shorthand notes. V. Handled. C. Quiet. Liability. My breath hitched reading those words. Liability? Who did he mean? My phone buzzed. A message from Lena. You okay? I typed back almost. Then another thought hit me. Where was the man in the suit getting this money? Who were the real players? I dug deeper into the box. There was a thumb drive taped to the underside. My hands trembled as I plugged it into my phone using an adapter. A folder opened. Video clips, documents. A scanned contract titled Acquisition and Dissolution, Sanderstone Estates, with my father's company listed. And one video file named simply Directive Eclair. My blood ran cold. I played it. The footage was shaky but clear enough. Ethan in an office I didn't recognize, speaking with a shadowed figure. The shadowed man slid a file across the table. Once we shift the assets, the man said, voice distorted, we remove the primary beneficiary. She's in the way. Ethan looked down at the folder and nodded. Handled. My hands felt like they belonged to someone else. I pressed rewind and listened again. Remove the primary beneficiary. Remove me. The words echoed in my head like a chant. I had imagined crimes, lies, adultery. Never this clean, cold threat. I slammed the laptop shut and hunched over. My whole world was no longer just a story to publish. It was personal. This notebook, this drive, this was proof not only of fraud but of a plan where I was the obstacle. I had a decision to make. Storm into the cabin and confront them, or bring this to Lena and the paper and arrest them with a team. I'd never been good at waiting, but this was bigger than a ruined marriage. This was criminal. Before I could move, the cabin door swung open. Ethan stepped out, alone. He looked tired, content, and very much unaware that his world had a hole in it. He spotted footprints in the soft dirt near the back. His eyes narrowed. Who's been here? He muttered, turning toward the storage bench. He bent down and, my chest dropped, pulled out the waterproof box. For a second I froze like prey. He thumbed through the receipts, then paused at the notebook. He opened it, and his face drained of color. He flipped pages faster, panic replacing the practiced calm I'd known for years. Claire? He called, voice shaking. Claire, is that you? I stepped out from behind the tree, the cold night pressuring me. He looked at me like a child caught stealing. What are you doing here? He said, trying to hide the tremor in his voice. I held up the thumb drive and the notebook. Finding the truth, Ethan. About you. About Vanessa. About Ravenwood. He shut his eyes briefly. The kind of shut that's a surrender. You shouldn't be here. This is dangerous. Dangerous for who? I asked. You? The men who've been laundering money through my father's company? Or for me, the liability on your little list? He swallowed. Listen, Claire. I can explain. He took a step toward me. I felt a pang, old memories. The way he used to smell, the softness of his hands. But the notebook burned between us like an accusation. Explain. My voice was flat now. Explain why you signed papers to sell my dad's firm to shell companies. Explain why you accepted envelopes in hotel lobbies. Explain why a man said, remove the primary beneficiary, and you said handled. His face crumpled in a way that made my heart ache and my teeth clench. I was desperate. We had debts. I made a choice. He looked like someone confessing to a sin he couldn't unsay. Madison, Vanessa, she offered a solution. She said she had investors. I thought I could cover it. I thought I could fix it before you ever knew. You thought you could fix theft by stealing from me? I laughed cold. You thought you could protect me by plotting my erasure? His eyes flashed. It wasn't supposed to go this far. The man, the one in the suit, he's not someone you cross. He's ruthless, Claire. He uses people. He kills properties, reputations, people. He wanted the company. He wanted me to be the one to make it happen. I was trapped. I reached into the box and pulled out another folded paper. It was a photocopy, a scanned document with signatures. My name appeared as a beneficiary release, a forged signature, and stamped across the corner in red ink. Executed. You forged my signature, I said. The words landed like a verdict. He knelt into the dirt, head bowed. I know. I'm sorry. Sorry. the single smallest word he could find for treachery that had ached my nights and endangered my life. But then, my eyes caught one more scrap tucked into the notebook, a Polaroid pic, curled and faded. I picked it up with shaking fingers. It showed my house, the front door, the mailbox. But in the corner, faded under the sun, someone had scribbled a date and a single word beneath it in black ink: remove. I looked back at Ethan. His whole body trembled like a leaf. "What does that mean?" I whispered. He didn't answer. Instead, he reached into his jacket and pulled out the small manila envelope he'd slipped into his pocket earlier at the hotel, the same envelope I'd watched him accept. He opened it and the color left his face. Inside were documents I'd never expected: a power of attorney, a notarized death certificate photocopy that listed me as deceased, and a typed note: contingency. If she becomes aware. My throat closed. Whoever had orchestrated this didn't just aim to steal assets. They had planned to legally erase me if necessary. I turned the Polaroid over and found handwriting on the back, a name I didn't expect to see. Not the man in the suit, not Vanessa, but a name that made my blood run cold because it linked everything together. It was the name of someone I trusted. The name scrawled on the back of the Polaroid was my lawyer's, the woman my father trusted most. And that single discovery made me realize this betrayal ran far deeper than Ethan ever admitted. For a few seconds, I just stood there, staring at that name scrawled on the back of the Polaroid like it was a ghost from my past. Marianne Holt, my father's attorney, the woman who had handled every family document, every property deal, every signature that tied our lives together. She'd been like family to us after my father passed. She used to send me birthday cards, invite Ethan and me to charity dinners, even called me sweetheart whenever she visited our home. I felt my stomach twist as I looked up at Ethan. "You had Marianne in on this?" I demanded, my voice breaking between rage and disbelief. He looked at me with hollow eyes. "Claire, she's not what you think. She's the one who started it. She brought the deal. She said your father's company could be flipped overseas without you ever knowing." I cut him off. "You thought you could erase my father's legacy." "Erase me?" He took a step closer, desperate. "I didn't know she'd go this far. I swear to God, Claire, when the money started coming in, I thought it was clean. But then the threats came, the man in the suit, the offshore accounts, the instructions. By then, it was too late." I laughed bitterly. "Too late for you maybe, but not for me." Ethan ran a shaky hand through his hair. "Claire, if you go to the police, they'll bury both of us. These people, they don't just steal money. They destroy anyone who gets in the way. Marianne, she's working with them. With Ravenwood." His voice dropped to a whisper. "She owns it." I froze. That shell company, Ravenwood Consulting, the fake firm I'd traced payments to belong to Marianne Holt. My pulse thundered in my ears. Everything snapped into place. My father's missing accounts, the offshore money, the fake marketing invoices. It wasn't just Ethan's betrayal anymore. It was a web, and I was tangled right in the middle of it. I stared at Ethan, every emotion colliding inside me: anger, disgust. But somewhere, faintly, pity. Because now I realized he wasn't the mastermind. He was a pawn. I looked at the forged document again, my name, my fake death certificate, the contingency note. If I became aware, they planned to make me disappear. My fingers tightened around the paper. "We're going to end this," I said. "All of it." Ethan's voice was quiet. "You can't. You don't know what you're walking into." "Oh, I do." I stepped closer, looking him in the eyes. "You just don't know who you married." That night, after Ethan fell asleep on the cabin's couch, exhausted, broken, terrified, I sat by the fire and began my plan. I copied the files from the thumb drive to a secure cloud. I photographed every page of the notebook, every document, every forged signature. And then I called Lena. She answered groggily. "Claire, it's almost midnight." "I have the story," I whispered. "But it's not just infidelity. It's criminal, laundering, forgery, conspiracy. And Marianne Holt is at the center of it." There was a pause. Then Lena's tone sharpened instantly. "You're serious?" "Dead serious," I said, the irony not lost on me. "I have everything: documents, signatures, even a video." Lena took a deep breath. "Okay. Don't come back to Seattle yet. Meet me at the Chronicle office in Portland tomorrow morning. I'll bring legal. We'll go through it together before publishing. I agreed. But as soon as I hung up, I felt a shadow pass outside the window. I froze. The forest was silent, too silent. Then came a soft crunch of footsteps in the snow. Someone was out there. I grabbed my phone and switched off the flashlight. My pulse raced as I peeked through the curtain. A dark figure stood near the edge of the woods, watching the cabin. Not moving, just watching. I backed away, trying to stay quiet. Then I whispered, "Ethan." He stirred, half asleep. "What is it?" "There's someone outside." He jolted upright instantly, all traces of exhaustion gone. He moved to the window, peeked, and went pale. "It's him," he whispered. "The man in the suit?" He nodded, his breathing uneven. "He must have followed me here. They know." I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. "What does he want?" Ethan's voice cracked. "The notebook. The drive. Evidence that could destroy them. And if he doesn't get it?" I asked quietly. He didn't answer. Outside, a car door shut softly. Then another. More than one. My throat tightened. There were others. Ethan grabbed my wrist. "Claire, we need to go. Now." We hurried through the back door, into the woods behind the cabin. The air was freezing, our breath forming clouds in the darkness. My shoes slipped on the frosted ground as we stumbled down the slope toward the road. Behind us, flashlights flickered. 3, maybe 4 men, moving fast. "They're chasing us," I whispered. "Keep running," Ethan shouted, pulling me behind a tree. For a moment, everything was chaos, the sound of branches snapping, boots crunching in the snow, voices calling out. Then, silence again. We crouched low, hearts pounding, until the lights faded. When we finally reached my car hidden off the main road, Ethan turned to me. "You can't go to Lena tomorrow. They'll be waiting. You need to disappear." I shook my head. "No, I'm not running anymore." "Claire, listen." "No, you listen." I stared at him, my voice trembling but strong. "You might have started this mess, but I'm going to finish it. You said Marianne runs Ravenwood? Then I'll use her own greed against her." He looked at me like I was insane. "How?" "I'm going to make her think I still trust her." The next morning, I called Marianne. I forced my voice into its old warmth, polite, trusting. "Marianne, it's been so long," I said. "Listen, I've been going through some of Dad's old company files and noticed a few things that don't quite add up. I was hoping you could help me understand." Her voice was syrupy smooth. "Of course, dear. I'm actually in Portland this week. Why don't we meet for lunch tomorrow?" "Perfect." We agreed on a time and place. As soon as I hung up, I called Lena. "Change of plans. I'm meeting the Queen herself tomorrow." Lena's voice sharpened. "Be careful. If she's behind all this." "I know," I cut in softly. "But if I play this right, she'll give me what I need to destroy her. And everyone involved." That night, I rehearsed my words, my tone, my fake smile. I looked at Ethan, exhausted, terrified, and perhaps finally honest, and said quietly, "If she's willing to kill to cover her tracks, then she'll reveal herself when she feels threatened. I just have to push her far enough." He didn't respond, just stared into the fire. Then he whispered, "Be careful, Claire. You're not fighting one person. You're fighting an empire." I smiled bitterly. "Then I'll bring it down brick by brick." The next day, as I walked into that luxury restaurant to meet Marianne Holt, my father's trusted lawyer, my husband's silent partner, and the woman who wanted me gone, I had no idea that before the lunch was over, someone wouldn't be leaving alive. The restaurant smelled of lemon and butter and people pretending to talk about nothing important. Marianne Holt arrived like she owned the room, silk scarf, perfect hair, a smile practiced for funerals and fundraisers. She kissed my cheek in that patronizing way that used to lull me into trust. I forced my smile to be warmer, softer. I let her think she had me. We were seated in a private room. Lena sat 2 chairs over with a recorder under the napkins. The detective the police had assigned, Detective Morales, sat near the door, looking like a man waiting to spring a trap. I felt a fierce, clean calm. Everything was in place. "Claire, darling," Marianne purred. "You sounded worried on the phone. I'm glad you reached out." Her eyes scanned me like a woman cataloging options. I leaned forward, folding my hands. Marianne, I'm so confused. There are documents, signatures, transfers, things that don't add up. You were my father's friend. I want to understand, not accuse. My voice sounded measured, reasonable. Inside, my chest hammered. Marianne's smile was a blade hidden in satin. Of course. I would hate for you to think ill of anyone who helped your father. Tell me what you found. I handed her a single printed page, a copy of the forged beneficiary release. I watched her fingers tighten as she read. She kept her face neutral, professional, the way lawyers are taught to behave when cornered. This must be a misunderstanding, Claire, she said, slow and soft. People photocopy things. Signatures are copied all the time. She tried to make it sound bureaucratic, trivial. You told Ethan to handle me, I said, quieter this time. You arranged the offshore accounts. You owned Ravenwood. You forged my signature and planned a contingency to remove me if I ever learned. The words landed like a verdict. Marianne's eyes flickered. Claire, you're a grieving daughter. It's easy to see conspiracies where none exist. That's not what the ledger says. I pushed a folder across the table. Bank transfers, shell company invoices, that small Polaroid with her name penciled on the back. Lena's fingers brushed the recorder, making sure it was on. Detective Morales gave me a tiny nod. For a second, Marianne's composure cracked. There was heat in her face, like a beautiful porcelain doll finally realizing it had a crack. She looked past me, toward the door, the instinct of a hunted animal. Her voice turned cold. Do you realize what you're asking? You're accusing people at the highest levels. This will ruin many lives. It will ruin one life that deserved ruining, I said. My father's. Mine. Yours, Marianne, for betraying him and me. She slammed her napkin down. You have no proof that I personally signed any illegal documents. You're relying on coincidence and rumors. Her hand slipped into her purse, and her lips moved like someone deciding whether to spit poison. That was the moment she made a fatal mistake. Marianne reached for a pen, but her movement was too sharp, too obvious. Detective Morales stood and strode forward. Ma'am, please place your hands on the table, he said, calm and professional. Marianne's eyes widened. The room's server, who'd been watching like a fly on the wall, suddenly backed toward the entrance. Marianne's face collapsed into fury and fear. You think you can just, she began. But Lena cut her off. We have the records, Marianne. We have the recordings. We have witnesses. We are not here to ruin anyone without evidence. Lena's voice was steady, the journalist blade now out and flashing. Marianne looked at her, then at me. For the first time I saw real panic. She jabbed her finger in my face. You don't scare me, Claire. You think your little file will topple me? People like me survive. People like me bury problems. She lunged, fast, a move that came from years of practice, not panic. She grabbed a decorative letter opener from the table and swung at me. Time slowed. I saw the glint, heard the scrape of metal. Detective Morales moved faster. He grabbed Marianne's wrist, twisted, and the opener clattered to the floor. Marianne screamed, something wild and animal in it. The detective pinned her gently but firmly until other officers, who'd been standing in the hall, filled the doorway. You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, forgery, and money laundering, Morales said into his radio. We've got your warrant. Marianne's scream changed pitch, became a keening that no silk scarf could mask as dignity. She glared at me with pure, naked hatred. You'll pay for this, she hissed. Don't think this ends with me. They led her out in cuffs. As they passed, she spat one last sentence at me. You took everything from me, Claire, you'll see. The world narrowed to my breath. I felt no triumph. I felt hollow, as if I'd walked through a fire and walked out scorched. Lena hugged me, then released me, her face luminous with the kind of victory that journalists savor. The recorder was safe. The files were copied to the Chronicle's secure servers. Detective Morales showed me the feed from the hidden badge cam. Marianne's threat, her arm reaching, everything documented. But this was only the beginning. Marianne's arrest didn't mean Ravenwood's network was finished. She might cooperate. She might fight. Powerful people move in powerful ways. I had to be ready. Over the next weeks, the story broke like a storm. The Chronicle published an explosive exposé. Ravenwood Consulting. How a trusted advisor betrayed a family and laundered millions. The headline used my name and my father's. The office buzzed with interviews. Comment sections filled with disbelief and rage. There were calls from family friends and old colleagues, some sympathetic, some accusing me of dramatics. Ethan's face was plastered on morning shows. His company's stock cratered. He was suspended from his board positions. His image, once gleaming, turned into fodder for late-night hosts. But the real blow was legal. Marianne's arrest led to subpoenas. Bank accounts were frozen. Richie accounts in offshore havens were unmasked. The men in suits, the ones who'd handed envelopes in hotel lobbies, were tracked. Some fled. Some were arrested. Over the following months, Marianne and several of her associates were indicted. Ethan, cornered by his guilt and terrified of prison, told everything he knew. His testimony, raw, ashamed, became the linchpin the prosecutors needed. We sat across from each other on the stand, him, a man hollowed by his choices. Me, the woman he had tried to erase. He said my name in court like someone begging for absolution. He apologized. He told the jury the whole rotten story. The envelopes, the forged papers, the contingency plan. He explained how greed and fear had swallowed him. There were tears, on both sides at times, though his felt like penance and mine like a reckoning. Ethan was convicted on multiple counts. Marianne received a long sentence, and Ravenwood was dismantled. Bankers, lawyers, and corrupt officials were exposed, and the seismic aftershocks of that truth brought down people from both my past and his. And me? I testified. I watched evidence roll across screens in a courtroom, my father's ledgers, the forged signatures, the thumb drives, the Polaroids. I watched the man I once loved crumble under the weight of his choices. I felt grief and relief and something like peace. After the verdict, when the courtroom emptied and the cameras finally left the hallway, Ethan came to speak to me one last time. He looked smaller than I remembered. "I'm so sorry," he said, voice raw. "You told the truth," I replied, my tone steady. "That was the only decent thing you had left to do." He nodded. "I know I ruined us. I know I destroyed what we had. I'm ready to accept it." It would have been easy to gloat, to whisper back the many sharp things I'd rehearsed for years. But in that emptiness after the storm, I realized the point had never been revenge for its own sake. It was justice. It was survival. It was the reclamation of a life that had been nearly stolen from me. Weeks later, I stood at my father's old desk in the quiet house and opened his ledger. The stains of betrayal were still there, red flags in black ink, but the company, under new oversight, began to heal. I worked with forensic accountants, with regulators, with people who wanted to rebuild on truth. When the cameras left for good and the headlines faded, I sat on the lake house porch one evening. Rain tapped the glass like someone testing a door. I breathed in, slow and steady. I had exposed him, exposed Marianne, and watched the empire they'd built collapse. It cost me love, security, and innocence. It gave me something else in return, the knowledge that I wouldn't be erased. Ethan serves his sentence now. Marianne rots in a pen elsewhere, her name a cautionary tale. Ravenwood no longer exists. My father's company is being rebuilt with transparency and care. I folded a paper and put it in the ledger, a new entry for a company that would no longer be a tool for someone else's greed. I had destroyed the man who betrayed me, but more importantly, I had destroyed the lie. I was left with the truth, messy, painful, and finally mine. Final line, he hid a mistress and a conspiracy. But when I revealed his darkest secret, I didn't just destroy him. I reclaimed my life.